welcome to the second part of this video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all the different types of minerals on the Earth. The first question that I want to answer is, someone asked, how many minerals are actually in the world? Is there more than just calcite, quartz, gypsum, and fluorite? And I can tell you, yes. There are 3,800 minerals or more that we have found so far. There's probably a lot more, but there's a lot of distinctions that we can make based on the shape and the type of things that are actually in the rock. So, types of cool minerals that we have is, there's a mineral called sphalerite, and it smells like rotten eggs. It's pretty cool looking, but it smells really bad. Other ones are like talc, which is used for baby powder. It's really, really soft. Other minerals include magnetite, which is actually magnetic, zincite, which shines really bright whenever you put it under special light. And then, of course, you have things like diamond or corundum or other things like that. So, the next question to follow up on that is, are gems minerals? And yes, they are. So, we have different ways of calling minerals, and they all have different names. So, what gem people do, what people who sell jewelry do, is they take minerals like quartz or corundum. For instance, you have quartz, and you can turn it into, or rather call it, and put it in jewelry, and call it agate, or amethyst, or citrine. And then in corundum is like rubies or sapphires, even though corundum itself oftentimes is really, really ugly looking. And then you can put garnets in jewelry, and of course, diamond, which happens to be the only thing that can scratch corundum, for whoever was asking about corundum. It's a very, very hard mineral, and only diamond can scratch it. So, the next question that I want to talk about is talking about different types of rocks. So, why do rocks break sometimes? Now, you guys had done a hardness test to see that there are rocks that are harder than others. For instance, if you have gypsum, it's softer than fluorite, and fluorite is definitely softer than quartz. So rocks are made up of all different types of minerals. A lot of minerals that you haven't heard of, or I haven't even heard of. So whenever you have all these combinations of minerals all cemented together, all pressed together, then whenever you have them under pressure, or whenever they're hit by harder rocks, they start to break apart. So that's how you get dust on minerals and dust on rocks, is because you have all these other harder rocks that are hitting the softer rocks and wearing them away. Now, the next question that was asked was, how were rocks first discovered anyway? I mean, they've always been around. They've actually been around longer than we have been. The Earth is really, really old, and the rocks are as old as the Earth has. Now, rocks get sucked down on the Earth, but there are still rocks around that are actually billions of years old. That's billions with a B, as in 100,000 mil. A lot. I'm just going to say a lot because I can't keep it straight. So, rocks were first discovered, well, back whenever they were cavemen. Whenever we were we were hunting and we were hanging out in caves, you know, that's when they started to find out rocks are kind of cool. They're really hard, and we can use them for a lot of things. We painted on them, and then we used them for weapons and all sorts of stuff. It only is recently that we've discovered, wow, there's so much other things going on with rocks that we can use to our advantage. So, the last question that I'm going to answer, before moving on to talking about volcanoes and earthquakes and all that sort of stuff, is, how are rocks made anyway? Now, I had talked a little bit about this in the first video, whenever I talked about some gems form at really different depths, like garnet forms very deeply, as opposed to fluorite, which forms very shallow temperatures, or depths. So, rocks forms in lots of different ways. For instance, limestone is actually made out of a bunch of sea animals. What? So, you have a bunch of little tiny microscopic animals, and they're living in the ocean, and you can't even see them. It's like the stuff that whales eat. And whenever they expire, they decide they have their shells, and their shells sink to the bottom of the ocean. And whenever they sink to the bottom of the ocean, all of them start piling up, and then all of a sudden there's a giant rock slide, essentially, on the ocean, and they all press that together and make rocks. So that's how you get limestone. Other things that happen is that those giant rock slides, you have a bunch of sand in them too. So you can make sandstone that way and just squish the rocks. Other ways that rocks can get squished is whenever you just have a lot of other heavier rocks laying on them and stuff like that. The other way that they can form is that the middle of the earth is really, really hot. And this is how volcanoes work too. And whenever the earth is really, really hot, the heated stuff, the heated lava, which is called magma when it's under the surface, starts to rise up, and it starts to cool down because it's not as hot up here as it is down in the center of the earth. So what ends up happening is that this magma starts to cool and to form really, really pretty crystals over time as it cools. And that's how most minerals and really precious, pretty minerals end up forming. And then they start getting squished, and then they start getting smushed, and all this dust and stuff like that, and that's how they turn into all these other more ugly rocks. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about volcanoes and stuff. And I'm going to show you and tell you just how do volcanoes work, and how do earthquakes work? Why do they happen? So thanks for listening.